If you're hearing this 200th episode of Dissecting the 80s on an Android device, head on over to the Google Play Store and check out the Podcast Republic app. It's got thousands of great reviews to tell you how wonderful it is. Seriously, it's like almost a 5-star average. It's more than 4.5. Thousands of people telling you how wonderful it is. Your favorite shows like Dissecting the 80s, they show up in your feed whenever they're posted. You don't have to remember what day of the week the podcast comes out. It makes your life easier, makes everything better. Check out the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store.
Support for Dissecting the 80s is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched the 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code MACHO, MACHO, at manscaped.com.
The Lawnmower 4.0 allows you to customize your trim with guard lengths between sizes 1 and 4, and it has wireless charging. The wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which helps the battery last even longer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code MACHO at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use our code MACHO. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Tripp Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers. And with me, as always, is my tag team partner, a man who knows that if you are going to make a movie about a 12-year-old boy who gets turned into a 30-year-old man, it's of utmost importance that you make explicitly sure not to have that character have any kind of sex in your movie. The Macho Man, Drew.
Andrew Lano. You also don't need to focus on how sad his family is that he's gone. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it. I have thoughts.
We're always fixing movies on this podcast. I have perhaps the smallest, tiniest tweak that completely fixes this movie. Like, I'm talking about a 2.5% change, and almost all the problems with the movie go away.
Fascinating. I was going to say, this might be our most, famous, well-regarded movie that we have problems with.
Yeah, I will say up front, I still kind of like this movie, despite the fact that I think it is actually a horror movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's got a lot of great stuff to it.
But pause that for one moment. It is our 200th episode of this show, which is so totally crazy. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping and announcement stuff here before we get into the movie. So if you're I don't care about this and I just want to skip ahead, look in the show notes and I will put the timestamp or an approximate timestamp of when the discussion about Big starts. I think this might go on for a couple minutes. I don't know how long, but both of us, I just need to thank everyone listening to this from the bottom of our hearts.
Yes.
200 episodes is bonkers.
That's weird to think about.
And only happened because people have listened to this show and told their friends about it and supported us financially on Patreon, which is incredible. Bigger thank you to those folks, even extra thank you, I should say, not bigger. We thank all of you. We're grateful to anyone that listens, but those of you who kicked in a few bucks at various stages to help us out is incredible. It's so nice to have that, and we're so appreciative of it. That's quick plug, patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. I think we're at about 17 or 18 hours of bonus content at this point if you sign up at the $5 level, and there's a bonus episode coming in December plus our Christmas bonus coming in December.
Have we decided what that's going to be?
Yes, but not on air, so I will tell you and then beep it out. I think we're going to do
okay. For some reason I thought we had some random thing that we were that would be a great Christmas Terry, but it was a joke, and I can't remember what the joke was now.
I think we'll do a thing that's a little more serious than the joke thing. Maybe another time we'll do a joke thing. I don't know. But anyway, it's a good way to check out. You get extra content for the show, and you support us and help make more Dissecting the 80s happen. But we do have a big announcement, and that is we are, after doing this for going into our 8th year, we feel that we have a little bit more reach in our arms. It took us a long.
We've retooled the DeLorean.
Yes. So we're just expanding very slightly the acceptable episode year or movie years for the show. And I want to make this super clear before you get upset, because I know someone is going to be upset with this, and I respect that. I appreciate your listen. Just because we're going to expand the years does not mean we're going to focus exclusively on them. I have sketched out our show through 2023, like not a final schedule by any means, but sometimes when I get a little downtime, I go looking for anniversaries and big movies that came out in, either on the 10s or the 5s. And through 2023, again, just sketched out, not final, I have, I think, 2 or 3 of these years, but we are extending the show from 1978 through 1992. So we're getting a little bit wider. And then the other caveat is sequels. So if we do, we did Jaws 3 and 4. This allows us to do Jaws 2. And maybe we want to walk backwards and do Jaws 1 for a movie we love episode sometime in February. Yeah. Maybe this opens the doors.
So that opens up like Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yes, exactly. A movie that we've talked at length. That we said we'd love to do an episode on that someday, and like, boy, don't we wish. So we've always had a little bit of fun with our leap year episodes, and that we're just incorporating a little bit more fun into the show. So it will still primarily be a show about movies that came out between 1980 and 1989. Like, the overwhelming majority of the movies will come from then. But as we've said many times, look, 80s movies didn't stop coming out on December 31st, 1989.
No, they didn't.
So, for example, I'll tell you right now, the movie that comes after this one for our special Tom Hanks month that we're doing this year is Joe versus the Volcano, which came out like less than 90 days after the 80s ended. And guess what? It's an 80s movie. It's absolutely an 80s movie. So we are gonna reach there. But like, for example, Tremors, another one we talked about, misses the cutoff by like 4 months. That's not fair to us. It's not fair to you. It's a great movie. So 1978, 1979, 90, 91, 92 are all on the table. That will not be exclusively what this podcast is about. It's just a little bit more fun for us, a little bit more fun for you. And, 92 is the year Andrew was born, so we get to extend it around that. We're still mostly doing movies we weren't conscious for.
We're still missing Hocus Pocus from the cutoff. So.
Yeah, Andrew's furious. So that also means that in Listener Request Month, you can pick movies from those years as well. So that extends it a little bit for y'all. But we're not going to change that much. I want to emphasize that. I can't emphasize enough. It's only a very slight change, and change is good. It's been 8 years. We're ready for a little bit. Reach out a little further. Reach out a little further is all we're doing. Also, I guess the other announcement, since we'd already spoiled it, is Tom Hanks month. This will be the final T Hanksgiving this year. We'll have a new fun thing next year, which
it's kind of sad.
It is. There's a couple of Tom Hanks movies left in the 80s, which we may or may not get to. I'm not particularly interested in his first like dramatic swings, but we may get to some of the leftovers we haven't gotten to. We have some ideas, along the way. We'll figure him out. He's not going away. We thought we had another idea in mind. So next year will be a new tradition, which we think you'll also all enjoy. I know we will. So if that's really ultimately what matters, we enjoy ourselves, or the podcast doesn't get made. So yeah, a little bit of a change, very small change, I think. Don't panic, anyone out there. It's all going to be fine.
We're expanding the hex if you watched WandaVision.
We're just making a little bit more room under the tent for some more friends that we'd like to talk about with you. That's all it is. So I hope nobody out there is like smashing their phone, just like, I'm done with these boys. That's it. But that's it. So that's our big announcement. So the end of T Hanksgiving will be 2021, and the slight expansion of Dissecting the 80s, which we're still going to call Dissecting the 80s, even though we've added 5 years. I don't think it's
Dissecting the 80s.
Yes, exactly. Dissecting the years 1978 through 1992 in film is a little bit too mouthy, so we're going to stick with what we've got. But that's our big announcement. So we hope that you all are cool with that out there in listener land, and we hope that you enjoy this episode about Big, which we are going to start right now. We watched Big for our 200th episode, so you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your super gross romance. Let's get about your super gross romance.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott.
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah. mega powers, yeah!
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Yeah, so I think what it is, and we've used this excuse many times, Tom Hanks is incredibly charming, and it skates past all the problems.
Well, also, I think it's just, I mean, I didn't read any contemporary reviews, but I don't imagine that 1988 audiences had the same, like, leaps of logic that 2021 audiences do.
Yeah. People pick apart movies like the fact that podcasts like ours exist is part of like a different way of movies are consumed now.
I definitely think that, you know, the casting helps with that to sort of gloss things over. But I also just, you know, it just conversations about consent and like children's involvement and things like that were not prevalent in the time.
Also, like, it's very easy to, it's like Tom Hanks is a full grown man, you know what I mean?
It's an adult.
And so
he's a full ass adult.
The movie is from his POV so heartily. Like, we do kind of like see the mom later here and there, and major kudos to I have her name written down later.
Michelle Rule.
Yes, that's it. It clicked on it for me watching yesterday for the first time, that she's the actress who plays Goochberg on Psych. She was like, remember there was like a 1 episode replacement partner for Tim Omenson's character.
To replace Jules?
She doesn't replace, essentially replaces Jules, but she comes in for like 1 episode.
Oh, she was like the crazy lady.
Yeah. She's a fresh recruit, but she's like middle-aged and she's a nutbag. Yeah.
I remember her now.
She's like pulling a gun on a store clerk and stuff. She's very good in that, in a very, very big silly role. She's excellent in this movie. And so it's like you cut to her for a couple of scenes and Penny Marshall like really focuses on her in the direction of this, and it's brutal for like 30 seconds. And then it's like back to la la la. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think this movie could have used a few trips. If you're gonna make a fun, silly movie about if you're gonna make 13 going on 30, then I don't want to think about how sad his family is that he's
also,
gone.
Speaking of 13,
like you can gloss over that, and I imagine the audience wouldn't think about it.
Huge run of these kid becomes adult movies. There's so I didn't know this existed, but there's a Disney movie called 14 going on 30, which is.
I just learned that today.
I'm just like, how do you not immediately get that title pitch to you? Go, well, no, 13 sounds better. Like the 3 thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But there's like 3. One of them has Judge Reinhold in it. And I can't remember. I think the other one is Kirk Cameron. I forget all these titles, but there's like 3 or 4 movies right around this one, all dealing with this same thing.
Huh.
So I don't know why
in
88 we were just obsessed with like, let's all be kids again.
But also, like, let's be adults now.
Yeah. It's like, it honestly feels like, and people are going to be like, oh God, they're talking about Reagan again. But is it like, maybe it's like people are we're all type A personality business people now in Reagan's America. And people are like, oh my God, I just wish I could like enjoy a baseball game and eat bubble gum.
Yeah, that's possible.
Anyway.
Reagan chokes on jelly beans in hell.
Yes, of course he does, with his little monkey friend. He knows what he did. The monkey, not Reagan. I mean, I assume Reagan did. I'm not sure. But
Reagan, of course he fucking knows what he did. He signed laws.
Like, he probably doesn't think anything he did was bad. He was barely aware of what he was doing for the last half of that presidency. He was just like a puppet.
Yeah, I just think this movie, like, it would be a better movie if you didn't show me how sad his family is.
Agreed. And so, okay, can I just fix the movie, and then because I
sure,
like
go ahead.
Just gonna hang out there. Okay, so here's how you fix the movie.
Is it 13 going on 30? Because
No.
that's a better version of the story.
I honestly haven't seen it, so tell me.
A better executed version of this narrative.
Tell me,
I should
because
say.
I have not, to my knowledge, seen that movie. Now, it's possible I've seen that movie and I don't remember it. I'm an old man.
Judy Greer, man.
Yeah,
And Andy Serkis not in a CGI suit, weirdly enough.
I'm not like, oh, fuck 13 going on 30. I just
No, I know.
Okay, I just want to be clear. It wasn't like, oh, Jennifer Garner can suck it. Like, I just don't think I saw it.
We can forget that Capital One sponsorship.
Yeah, exactly. They're going right out the window. Okay, so here's what happens. He finds the Zoltar machine at the end of the movie. He makes his wish. He has the big heart-to-heart conversation with Elizabeth Perkins. Like, the only reason to stay is you. And then he says, like, and I guess I have to stay because it didn't work. So they go back to her apartment, and he's like really sad, and they lay down and they go to sleep, because in my version of the movie, it's dark. So it's like it's nighttime. Because in the beginning, the wish doesn't work until you go to sleep.
Yeah, he has to go to sleep.
The rules are terrible.
It's like Freaky Friday.
Exactly. So they go to sleep, and he's sad, and she's comforting him, and she's like, we'll figure out something to do. Fade to black, fade up. Little kid Josh is on the top bunk. He wakes up with a start. He falls out of the bed. We cut to Ms. Rule downstairs. We hear her. Okay, sorry, I missed a spot. She goes, Josh, it's time for breakfast. He wakes up and he falls out of the bed. We cut to the same shot earlier of her putting the eggs on the plate and the thud noise from upstairs, which in the beginning of the movie is him like destroying
old man.
In this case, it's
30-year-old.
Hey.
I'm 29.
She's putting the eggs on the plate. We hear the thud. It's the same scene. She looks up all funny, and then he's like, I'm fine. And then he comes downstairs in his pajamas, and he gives his mom a huge hug, and she's like, what's this? And he's like, oh, I just thought you needed it. You know, I just I wanted to give you a hug. And she's like, oh, that's odd. And she puts the eggs on the plate, and then he reaches into his pocket, and he finds the Zoltar ticket, and he sees, like, your wish has been granted. And he's like, oh, it's none of that happened. Like, it didn't.
Oh, it was a dream.
Not a dream. It was like it happened and then it unhappened. You know what I mean? It was like we pulled you out of the timeline, we put you into this thing, and then we put you back.
So is
it's like an alternate reality.
But in this alternate reality, does he? So it still has the beginning where he wakes up an adult in his childhood bed, and he still has to take his friend out of school and go to New York. That all happens too.
But all that gets undone. Because he wakes back up and it's the same morning. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like very specifically,
I get that.
Nothing happened. Like, it all was like real to him.
That is, I will say, very similar to the ending of 13 going on 30. That's a better
narrative. It's better.
Well, no, except in 13 going on 30, she doesn't wake up in her own bed as an adult. She is 13 and she wakes up in her 30-year-old apartment. Like, she's an adult in her, like, jumps forward 17 years. Does that not cause her to
have just a complete existential meltdown? Because I feel like...
Oh, yeah, no, she freaks out about it in the beginning. That's the first, like, 20 minutes is, like, her being like, there's a naked guy in my apartment, and it's her boyfriend. And, like...
Well, maybe I need to watch
Judy Greer is like, get in the car.
Does Judy Greer know what's up?
No, God, no one knows. Like, that's the thing. She's like, I'm a child. And Judy Greer's like, God. Judy Greer's her, like bitchy best friend who's like... God, I guess I have to deal with you now.
But like, doesn't that solve almost all the problems of this movie? It's like he never did.
It does certainly help.
Had sex with that woman because it doesn't exist anymore. So that problem's out the window. The mom doesn't have the heartbreak because, again, like to her, it's the same day, and it undoes it. And like, yes, it is kind of it's all a dream, but it's like in this case, I'm advocating for it. It's all a dream because it's just better. It's a better.
I agree. I mean, I agree. I think that ending helps.
So that's my fix. I think you make that one change. It firmly establishes the rules of the magic in this movie, which are incomprehensible otherwise. And also undoes many of the issues. So anyway, we'll go through the movie, but that was my fix. Also, just in background stuff, I mentioned Penny Marshall already. She does a great job with this movie, but originally it was supposed to be Spielberg because his sister has a writing credit on it.
Mm-hmm. It was also Landis was another person.
Yes. And her writing partner on this did Ocean's 8, the lady-driven version of the Ocean's movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Also the Hunger Games. But her other writing credit is a movie called Time.
Wow, that's a range.
Yeah. He has and some other stuff too that kind of spreads all over the place genre-wise. But she has another credit writing a movie called Time Warp that is a similar, not the same thing, but a similar time jump thing. So I'm just like, what's up in the Spielberg household that Anne was just like, I just want to not be this age anymore.
People never really talk about young Josh, I feel like. He didn't do a whole lot, but he was engaged to Kerry Washington for a time. Yeah. And apparently helped produce the Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights.
What?
The show, his Broadway show, his first one.
Is he like the son of like the Koch brother or something?
I don't think so. It didn't sound like it. I mean, I glossed over Wikipedia, but yeah, he and Kerry Washington. He was engaged to Kerry Washington, and the two of them helped produce In the Heights.
Kerry Washington helped produce The Heights. I don't know that. I didn't know that.
Apparently, not the movie, the original Broadway production, but yeah.
Huh. I'm like sure that we're gonna find out that he like someone's gonna tweet and it's like actually his name is David Moscow because his father was Jim Moscow of the Russian Moscows.
I mean, I will say there is no mention on the In the Heights Wikipedia page of Kerry Washington being involved. So,
That's
do
very
with
weird.
that what you will.
Anyway, I love that we start with a text-based adventure, some classic computer game, which is basically like D&D, but you don't need a friend.
But it's also got a picture. I thought text-based didn't have any pictures.
That is definitely the first generation of text-based adventures was just text. I think this is like step 2, which is like not animated so much as illustrated. So
Yeah.
he's playing this game. It's time to go to school. He takes the trash out into a wrestling trash can, which I really enjoyed because you don't see them anywhere but movies and wrestling.
The metal?
It's like I've never seen one of them in real life.
Yeah, I don't know that I have
I see
either.
it in movies and I see it when wrestlers hit each other with them, and that's pretty much the list. The cities I've lived in have all had the like municipal, everybody has the same trash can situation for like the trucks pick them up. So I think that's just an age thing, but I do love seeing a good wrestling trash can. So we go to the carnival, and the thing that sucks about the beginning of this movie is his parents are so good. They're so sweet to him. Like they're like
know.
very good, attentive parents. And it's a situation where you're like, I don't know, this kid's 12 and there's a baby. Like, you know, maybe he's not getting attention. It's like, no, they're snapping pictures of him playing the games. He's got plenty of tickets. He's getting anything he's asking for. He's got his cotton candy.
Yeah.
He's got his soda. He's playing the games. And they're just like, oh man, like this family loves each other.
I don't want this family to be sad.
No. They, in addition to loving each other, they also seem to like each other, you know, which is not a given in a movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say we don't see the dad
He does totally disappear. And people I've seen other reviews online where people are like, well, that's because he was like, I can't deal with this. And he like either walks away or kills himself.
Entirely possible that, you know, the strain of losing a child put a strain on a marriage.
And that's the thing is like the way this movie ends, like we have no idea what happens with this family. There's a very real chance that the family does not recover. This mother is ruined.
Well, because what is he going to say?
Right. There's no explanation that makes any sense. And even if he does explain it, someone's going to be like, oh, yeah, your son made that up to get over the fact that he was tied up in a basement for 2 weeks. Or no, 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 8 weeks. It's been months.
It's at least 6 weeks. We're sure of that. So I think it's probably closer to 7 or 8. But yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, your son was abducted for 2 months. Who knows if he was assaulted, sexually assaulted, abused mentally or physically. Like, anything could have happened to him.
Yeah. Also, how old are these kids because she's like, this is the girl that he has a crush on is like, this is Derek. He can drive. I'm like, how old are you?
That's also a problem because Josh is 13.
Is he 13? Because Wikipedia says 12.
So I have always thought 12, but the friend says 13 later. And so I thought they were both the same.
Oh, because he has a birthday.
He turns 13 in the movie. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, at best, you're talking about a high schooler dating a middle schooler, which is disgusting.
Yeah, a 16-year-old dating a 12-year-old.
Right, 16-year-old is sophomore year of high school. Yeah.
Sophomore into junior.
Yeah. So you're talking about a 7th grader and a 10th grader. It's just icky to me. Yeah.
Weird. Don't like it.
It's icky. But Josh has the big crush, so he's going to talk to her and, you know, oh, mom and dad, I think I should ride this ride alone. You know, I'm brave and I can do it. And it's one of those like classic carnival Ring of Fire. It's just like it's just the loop part of a roller coaster and no other track.
Yes.
Like, hey, how much just to do the loop? What do you mean? People will vomit. Exactly. That's the point.
Ugh. I haven't been to like a local fair like that in forever.
I haven't been since high school, but I definitely rode a ride like this. And it was like they put you in like a cage and like buckle the cage down. Like you're also belted in or strapped in some way. But I was like really wedged into this thing with a friend because I've always been a big fella. In high school, I was peak big fella. Like I had shoulders that barely fit through some doorways. And so they wedged us in this thing and then buckle it shut. And I just kept banging my head on the door. It was just like, this sucks. This is so unfun.
Ugh. See, even when I went to those things, I never liked the rides. I'm like, these are held together with chewing gum, rubber bands, and a prayer. Like, I walk around and eat the food and play the games.
Yeah, I had friends that were like, oh, we got to get on the ride.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, it's like I forget what the one it's called in this movie, like the Super Looper or something, but I always knew it as Ring of Fire. So the boyfriend shows up and they go to get on the ride. Oops, Josh is too short. And the girl's like, that's a stupid rule. And I'm like, excuse me, miss, it is definitively not a stupid rule to keep this child from dying on this ride.
It's there for safety.
Thank you so much.
As someone whose job it was to enforce that rule 7 years ago, that rule is there for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And Josh isn't like almost tall enough. He's like a fist short of this chicken hand.
Yeah, like it's not even like a parent could try and argue that. Like he's fully just too short.
He's a little shrimpy boy. And because it's a fly-by-night carnival, they don't have the lovely theme park thing of like, well, come back when you're old enough. It's like, get out of here, kid.
Yeah, there's no sorry. Unfortunately, I can't let you on the ride, but something else. No.
The carny heckles him to get him to go away. Beat it, shrimp.
Yeah.
So we get the classic Zoltar machine. And I really like the version of Zoltar in this is a game, which seems way more fun to me than the fortune teller versions that are out now, which is just like you put in the money and you get a fortune. I think it's way cooler that it's like, okay, you make a wish and you try to jump the quarter into his mouth. And if you get it, he grants your wish. And if you don't, you don't. I think that's much more entertaining. So we don't normally do this, but we've had like 4 problems with issues with our recording that have all happened right now due to some human error and some computer error. So we're just peeling back the curtain to let you know that this is the third take of this conversation starting from here. That first Andrew was muted and then I was muted, and now we're trying again to pick up our conversation naturally. But it's been so off the rails that we just have to just tell you all what happened, which is that we screwed up.
And the second conversation was completely different.
Totally
That's
different.
the thing.
Yeah, it's not like we were like, oh, okay, this is your line, this is my line. It's like, let's just criminy. So
yeah, I like how Zoltar's gamified.
Yes. And
I heard that it's made up for the movie.
Yes. And I think there was probably like fortune teller machines at the time of various types, but not this particular one. But my big beef is like, this movie is a magic is real movie, and this moment does.
It's listed as a fantasy comedy.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but it's like almost high fantasy because they just don't have enough magic in this moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, and
tell me your original point that I've never heard before, please.
It was a good joke, so I'm keeping it. So after he makes his wish and he gets the little card, we see that the Zoltar machine is unplugged. And I think that is like the perfect amount of magic for the scene. Like I didn't need some like old man carny with a gold tooth winking as he like wheels a hand truck away. Like
it's Ernest
Borgnine. Like basically being Tom Hanks in Polar Express. Yeah. Like I didn't need that.
Ernest Borgnine like doffs a cap with his crazy hair going. Or Paulie has his robot from the Rocky movie.
Yeah, I mean the robot would the robot would have been the Zoltar machine, like in Futurama.
That's probably true. See, goes back to my point from many episodes ago, but like we don't have anybody to play carnies anymore. Like those two solid carnies.
We don't.
There's no carny actors left, I don't think.
Well, also like what is a carny now? Like in 2021, like
I'm saying if you're making a period piece that involves carnies.
Okay, that's fair.
Where you need old men carnies. Because like current carnies are like people who have run afoul of the law and are on a second chance, which is a good thing. It's good for society to give second chances. Or people with drug problems. Like I used to cover the fair when I worked in Frederick, and there was always, it's like I enjoyed the fair, and so I would try to go as much as possible. I'd go write about the food, I'd write about whatever, because I just enjoyed. First of all, it was just something different happening, and it was just fun. But like toward the end, they're like, we'll pay you $16 an hour in cash to tear down the fair. And I always thought like, oh, maybe that's a story. And then I was like, no, it's not. It's just people who need cash. Like that's not a story. It's not interesting. Like that's not a fun story. Don't do that.
I mean, even when I did that like 10 years ago, I guess at this point, no, it would have been like 8 years ago. I was a performer at a local haunted thing in Westchester when I was in college. And it was just like, the craziest group of people from all manner of like one girl was like, yeah, I got out of rehab last week. And I was like, huh? Okay, cool.
It's great that there is employment for folks who need it. You know, this is not.
Yeah, there's no shame in that. But it was just like way more of that. And like also the farm hands who used to run it, but they were like, hey, we need to bring in professionals. They got mad that we were brought in. Like it was a mess.
Yeah. And so that's what it's like. When I say I want actors to play Carney, is like I want the old man who doffs his cap at Tom Hanks and winks, which I don't think we have anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who would
like maybe
who would do that today.
Like honestly, it's got to be Christopher Lloyd. There's like no other options that I can think of.
Yeah, definitely Christopher Lloyd. He's skinnier than I was picturing. I was trying to picture a heavy man, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not hulking, like a portly, like Maurice, a human Maurice from
sure.
from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, honestly, it's like De Niro is too big of a name, but it's like a De Niro age.
Yeah,
but that's the right age.
Yeah, I can see that. I'll think of someone halfway through this recording and like shout it out.
But it's like what I want to happen is the ticket needs to be the ticket from Last Action Hero. It needs to like shimmer,
the sizzle around the edge.
Josh even notices it in character, but I like for the audience.
I wanted just like a wind like when like Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling sucks. When Harry Potter picks up his wand and there's that like rush of wind on his face, like something like that. Because then later there is the windstorm.
Yeah, the big storm kicks up
and like
right now.
Are we to assume that it's related?
I think so because there's wind that blows hard when he makes the second wish. Not quite as much, but it does blow. You see trash kick up before Elizabeth Perkins runs out to be like, "Wait, don't do it. Stay and have sex with me, child."
Gross, don't. We'll get there.
I also love that they've got the walkie-talkies to talk to each other, like adjacent houses.
I always wanted that.
Oh, me too.
Why? Why?
It's like you're getting one over on the parents because it's like you're supposed to be asleep, but you're secretly talking. Now kids just text all night. Like this to kids probably seems stupid, but in the pre-cell phone era when we grew up, it's like, oh man, that's so cool. Because I definitely tried it with friends, and the child walkie-talkies did not reach that far enough for the distance between my friends' houses and me.
Didn't we have nicer walkie-talkies at one point?
We did, but I wasn't gonna like lend that out to a friend. That would be
but I think down the beach.
That's exactly right. Before cell phones.
The girl I was friends with across the street down the beach. I don't want to dox. I don't want to say names.
Her first name.
You know who I'm talking about. Rachel, my friend from down the beach when I was a kid. I think we tried to walkie-talkie once because she had a nicer one too, and we like tried to find the same channel.
We had like you buy like a 2-pack or multi-pack. I think we got like a 3 or 4-pack of these same like adult walkie-talkies in the pre-cell phone.
Like Motorola.
Yeah, so that like we could go to like the fun fair part of the beach to the boardwalk, and our parents could be like, "Here's a roll of quarters."
I forgot that's why why we bought
it was
that.
Like it was like a little bit of kid freedom. It was like you guys can go run around and have some fun.
I just got like a flood of memories because I fully forgot that that's why we had the walkie-talkies.
Yeah, and there was like a thing on it where you could like it was kind of like that Nextel chirp, but you could like push a button and it would like ring. So if they couldn't hear your voice, you get the ring that'd be like beep boop doop 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 doop.
Yeah, I'm remembering this now.
So we wake up the next morning, we got Hank's legs swinging over the bed, and this is like really what makes this movie so good is his freak out here is incredible, but his whole performance where it's like truly believable that a child is trapped in a man's body, that he's a little kid, that he's having, these reactions in meetings, he's having all these reactions to like how adults operate, feels so natural and good. And that combined with the fact that the movie takes place entirely from his point of view is why this movie works and is so beloved.
For sure. IMDb had a few people listed of who else was considered.
It's a truly insane list.
The two that I noticed were the two that I thought could also do it. It's Robin Williams and the Goots, friend of the pod. I think those two would deliver similar energy. I'm
the biggest Goot apologist in the world. And while I think I agree with you, he could pull it off. This movie is not nearly as good with the Goot at the wheel.
Yeah, I don't think any movie replacing Tom Hanks with the Goots is generally considered to be
and Hooch,
a better movie.
Turner and Hooch is a better movie.
Okay, I'll give you Turner and Hooch, but I don't think.
Just saying.
Name one other Tom Hanks.
Castaway.
The Goots on an island.
Obviously not, but I like the idea. The Goots.
I feel like he was probably in some goofy Stuck on an Island movie.
The Goots in Polar Express.
The Goots as everyone in Polar Express.
He plays all 9 roles like Tom Hanks does.
God, I hate that movie.
So originally it's Spielberg attached, and when Spielberg's attached, it's Harrison Ford. Spielberg leaves, Harrison Ford drops out.
Well, and De Niro was first somehow.
No. De Niro comes on next. So De Niro gets...
okay.
They do a whole big consideration list. De Niro gets attached with Elizabeth Perkins. He is 45 at the time. She is 28, which in Hollywood means they're the same age.
Yeah.
But here's...
I just can't... Like, De Niro always had kind of an old face.
He did. But also, have you seen Midnight Run? Because if you haven't,
No.
Midnight Run, I think, is probably my favorite De Niro performance. I think it's like his most interesting performance. Like, he's great in a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong. Like, I just watched Goodfellas not for the first time in a long time, and marveled at how great he is in that. He's great in pretty much everything.
That's the garlic one, right?
Yeah,
the garlic and the razor blade.
And is now on the table for the show, so you're gonna have to watch it.
That's
at some
true.
Point. But let me read these names off to you: Kevin Costner, Warren Beatty, who played Dick Tracy. No. Yeah. Dennis Quaid.
Warren Beatty wasn't Warren Beatty Clyde? Is that who I'm thinking of?
Yes. Yeah, that's him. Dennis Quaid, the ham sandwich. Albert Brooks, who's like way too old and too big of a goofball. Although I like Albert Brooks, I think he's funny. John Travolta like desperately wanted to be the guy, and the studio was absolutely not. No, thank you. Sean Penn, Gary Busey, who Penny Marshall didn't think could play an adult, despite the fact that he was like 40 at the time.
She didn't think Busey could play an adult?
That's what the Wikipedia says. I don't know, but at the time he was 44 years old.
Penny.
So, Andy Garcia, but they turned him down.
And they were racist and said no.
He's Puerto Rican, which sucks. Deborah Winger tried to convince her to make it a girl, Penny Marshall, that is, and she was like, no.
But Deborah Winger was also up for the Elizabeth Perkins role, so I'm like, was she just like everyone in this?
If you had the choice between the two characters in this movie,
obviously,
and then De Niro, who eventually becomes Tom Hanks, which is the correct choice, A to Z.
I think so, for sure.
But yeah, this is like, you said this in one of the cut versions, and I thought it was a good point, so I'm repeating it because we've had this conversation up until this point 3 times now. This is kind of like Tom Hanks's early nascent Woody, because it's like really big, but also really emotionally.
Yeah, it's got its valleys for emotional depth, but it's a big fun performance.
Yeah. And so he puts on the clothes, he goes to the carnival grounds, and it's a really great score here of him biking around this empty carnival, like really sells the sadness of this moment. Although I get being like, who the hell got hired to clean up this carnival, and why are they not employed?
Yeah, I was like, it's been how long? Yeah. I've seen like play and musical strikes last longer than that, and that's just a few sets in a room. That's not an entire fairground.
Well, I mentioned the working for the newspaper before. They do tear down the Frederick Fair overnight.
I mean, I get overnight, but like it's 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, they're gone. It's like they work until 3 or 4 in the morning and it ends. Yeah,
really?
And they're like, they get the hell out of there. Yeah, that's my impression. It's like they hire as many people as they can to get like, that $16-17 an hour at the time in cash, and just try to tear down by 4 a.m. And then the trucks leave. The truck drivers show up probably at 4 or 5 a.m. to drive to the next place. Because these carnivals, it's very fascinating. One of the cool things about doing the interviews there is there was this root beer truck, which it's like a carnival staple.
Like A&W?
Yes, but it's like, mom and pop root beer stand. It doesn't have brand.
Okay, cool.
It's a couple who do that as their retirement. They were both like in their 60s or 70s, I think, at the time, but they grew up going and getting root beer as like they get root beer floats, and they loved it, and so they bought the truck, and now they do it as their retirement shop.
That's so
cute. But they spend like 16 weeks a year on the road. They like hook the truck up to an RV, and from May to September they're on the road.
Okay, so like that's a quarter of a year, right? Ish.
Yeah, 4 months. It's a third a year. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, like they go from place to place to place. So like the fair packs up, and they start driving to the next location, and they set up for a week, and then they drive to the next location.
I always forget about that kind of like quick cash kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because when I worked, I don't remember. I think this is in the take we're doing right now. When I worked for that the haunted thing.
Yes, I think that's in this take.
Part of the contract was like, if you have to work until the end of your contract, the closing date. Otherwise, you have to give back half the money you earned.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah. I read that and I was like, what? And someone was like, yeah, a lot of people will do this for like they'll sign up for 2 weeks and then just bail. Yeah. And so that people don't do that, that's in the contract.
Yeah, that's definitely not legal. BT dubs.
I mean, I got out of it because they tried to screw me over. I was working for them for like 2 weeks or whatever, and I was getting paid more because I was a quote unquote professional actor, and that was the point. Like I was specifically like they were looking for actors, and then I had like helped out with makeup one night. Like I had gone above and beyond for this little shitty little dive hole, and then they were like, I got a phone call, and they were like, "Hey, we need to reduce your pay back to what everyone else is making," and I was like, "I'm sorry," and they were like, "Yeah, you're gonna go down to what everyone else is making." And I was like, "So you're gonna offer me a new contract to sign, right, with this new pay rate?" And they're like, "Of course." And I was like, "Great." And so I showed up and I got the money that the paycheck or whatever. And the girl who was giving me the contract was like, "I'm really sorry. Like I don't want to do this." And I was like, "Okay," because I'm not gonna sign it. And now that this contract is in place, the other contract is now is not in place anymore. So I'm taking my money and leaving. Have fun.
Yeah, that sucks. That's really shitty all around. All those things are shitty. He runs home and he's trying to explain to the mom, who of course is freaking out. And he does this.
Is there a right way to do this?
Yeah, it's with like you call.
You think a phone call?
I think the phone call is better than running in and being like, "I'm wearing your child's underwear, me, a full-grown man."
I am only saying that because I don't think there is a right way to do this. I don't think there's a version of this where our mom does not react the same way she does.
The other thing I've thought about too, because I've been thinking about this ever since I watched the movie, I think if he gets the friend first and he like convinces the friend that he is Josh, and the friend comes in and is like, "Look, what I'm going to tell you is insane."
Huh.
Okay? Like, what I'm going to tell you is absolutely insane, but I believe this person is who he says he is. Like, you can call the police if you want, but I am almost I believe this is who it is. This is Josh. Something weird has happened, and you have the friend explain the whole thing, and then you have him walk in, and of course she's gonna like freak out. But it's like just ask.
That is the right.
And
way
you're
to
like
do it,
you're like just quiz him, because I quizzed him and he passed with flying colors. You know, like he knew the secret handshake, he knew the thing. Like just start quizzing him, and the kid like you just have to have him quiz him. But the problem with it is like then what do you do? Like obviously
what's next?
It's like they do have to still find the Zoltar machine, and maybe they come up with that answer on their own, and the mom and the dad help. But it's still like what do you just hide him for 6 weeks? Like what do you do? Like, oh, Josh.
I don't know. He just lives in the house.
Josh, he's got to be locked in his room, basically.
I mean, I guess I could pretend he was like someone visiting.
Sure, but then where's Josh? You know, it's like he has mono, I guess.
Yeah, Josh is sick.
So yeah, it's just like that to me is the only possible way you get around it. Is like you get the friend, and the friend is like, "This is totally insane," but you have to quiz him because it's the only way to find out. And it's like, call the police if you want, but quiz him first.
I like that. That's right.
Because from her perspective, her son ran out of the house. She presumably found his tattered pajamas upstairs, like ripped to shreds. And then a full-grown man comes in the house wearing her husband's sweatshirt and her son's underwear.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, obviously, like I said, what he did was not right. I did not think there was a right way to do it, but I think the best friend is a good angle.
But I do love that she immediately goes from like, "Don't hurt me, don't hurt me." And then she's like, "Oh man, this guy is my son," to she pulls a knife out of the block and it's going to kill him, which is great.
A big old knife.
It's delightful. Michael Myers was jealous of this knife. He's like, "Damn, that's a big one."
Yes. So then he sneaks to the school and convinces his best friend that he is himself.
Yeah, they show like a little interlude of the friend playing basketball, which Tom Hanks is able to like just watch for some reason, which is very strange.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of our high school gym. I guess you could theoretically like peek in a window.
I mean, a random ass adult is not getting into that high school without a bunch of people asking questions.
Well, no, I'm now in 2021, but in the 80s, I feel like
in the 80s probably. But when we went to high school, no way.
No, there was a receptionist who was right there.
Excuse me, who are you? I went in college. I went back to go see an old teacher that I liked and had lunch with them. And I was leaving. So I was 19 or 20 at the time. And I was leaving and walking out the front door. And I took my phone out to use it. And the principal, so we went to Downtown East. This was Downtown West. So she had moved to a different school. And so I went there to visit her. But I didn't know any of these, administrative people at all. And the principal's like, "Hey, give me your phone." And I was like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "You can't have your phone out in school." And I was like, "I don't go here." And he's like, "Well, then what are you doing here?" And I was like, "I just had lunch with this teacher I signed into the front desk and it's all above board. And he was like, get out. I was like, I was leaving. Thanks.
I was on my way.
Literally walking out the door when you accosted me. But they did not fool around.
Even when I worked in a high school, it was a pain in the ass to scan in. Because, like, the only scanner was at the far side of the door set. Yeah. But then, like, it didn't always open the door right next to it. So you had to, like, run over and get inside.
I love that image of you just like frantically trying to get into this high school.
Holding a stack of dresses in my arms as I like run inside. Very Zoidberg.
Yeah. So anyway, the friend is cherry picking so bad. He's at the other end of the court. They throw the ball to him with like a full 25 seconds before the other boys arrive, and he just bongs it off the underside of the rim twice.
Why were there so many balls if they're like what it looks like dodgeball, the number of balls there are. It seems like they were
playing dodgeball and then we're like, okay, now it's time for basketball, which is not like any gym I'm aware of.
It's like movie gym.
Yeah, just like random activities and stuff.
Yeah.
But they do the secret song, so he believes it's him. So he steals some money for Hanks, and they send him on his way to New York. I should mention we are both watching the original theatrical cut, not the extended version, which makes this part
because this movie does not need to be over 2 hours long.
210 is bonkers. This is like a perfect length. It's like 100 minutes. It's really nice.
For me, I'm an advocate for a tight 90. It starts to drag by the end of it, I think.
Agree with that. Once it's obvious where the movie is headed, it takes a little too long to get there. So he goes to a sketchy motel in New York, and they both clearly Tom Hanks plays this part of it like two kids wearing a trench coat pretending to be an adult.
Yes, exactly that.
Like a room, one please.
Well, also like they live in North Jersey clearly because you can see the city. I don't think if you're going to go lay low in New York for a couple weeks or whatever while you figure it out, you don't have to go to Times Square. Like you can just go right over the river to New York.
Right. I mean, they're kids. They probably only know of Times Square, basically.
Yeah, probably.
Meanwhile, while they're escaping, the cops are like, investigating, walking around. Apparently I read like a recap of what's in the longer version. Apparently there's like a long scene with the cops, a longish scene with the cops talking to the parents, which again is like not the right tone for this movie.
No, you don't need it.
It's also a bummer. Like what?
Also, I guess theoretically, couldn't you like blood test him?
I mean,
to find
now
out if
you
he's
definitely
Josh?
could. Yes, for sure. At the time, I don't know how feasible that was, but for sure that would be the answer.
At least a paternity test would probably tell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I imagine.
Yeah, you would think.
But yeah, I fully forgot that this movie had those like real emotion moments when Hanks is alone in the motel room, and he's just like breaking down because he's a child, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, he's a 12-year-old boy alone in the sketchiest. This motel room makes the rooms in Supernatural look like the Four Seasons.
Exactly, except there's no 60s room divider that they can swap out each episode.
Right. So there's like a gunshot outside. He's freaking out. He has really good child terror on display here.
Mm-hmm.
He pushes the set of drawers in front of the door.
Smart. I mean,
hey.
hey.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trust that because when the friend leaves, he's like, you should use the chain. And I was like, yeah, you definitely should.
100%.
I don't know if I even trust the chain. So they go and they fill out the form to find out all of the fares in the state, which is pretty smart for two 12-year-olds, I got to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when he biked over in the beginning of the movie, biked over to the empty fairground, there was a poster on the ground. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, is he going to like pick it up? And there's going to be like a phone number on there for like information or whatever.
Yeah. This lady's like, you can fill out this form in triplicate and we'll have answers for you in 6 weeks. It's just like, oh man, 1988, huh?
God, bureaucracy.
Well, also just like, that's probably how long it took to like mail something to somewhere, get the records printed, get them collated, and then get them mailed to you, as opposed to someone typing it in on a computer and it being done instantaneously.
Ugh, God, I can't imagine.
So we go and we eat ice cream sundaes at some weird little diner, and we're job searching. And this part really always amuses. Even as a kid, I found it funny because I was watching it. I knew what a computer was the first time I saw it. But he's reading these names, or he's reading all the jobs out to Josh, the best friend, and he gets to computer analyst, computer. I think
computer user or something.
Operator, yeah.
Operator, that's what it is.
And so he's like computer operator, and Hanks is like, go back to that one. He's like, come on, you and your computers. He sounds like a middle-aged dad. Like, what? You're a kid. You should think that's cool.
Right? Also, in 2021, that's all jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And he's just doing data entry, but it's like someone has to manually input these records. Seems like, oh my God, what a huge waste of human time.
Oh, God. Also, we cut to them in the office lobby at the job, like filling out a job application. Yes. And I was like, oh, right. You could just lie about everything.
Yes. There's no way to check anything.
Like, he lies about his school, his previous job history.
He doesn't actually lie about his school because he says, where did you go to school? And where did you go to school? And he says George Washington, which I think is the name of his actual elementary or middle school.
I mean, probably.
So technically he doesn't lie.
No, but I mean, it's just like today, everything gets automatically, when I apply for a job, everything is automatically checked.
Of course.
As soon as you type it into the form, it's like, bloop.
And the other part I really love is like, oh, you're missing 2 numbers out of your social security number is too short. And he's like, 12. And the guy's like, oh, okay. And then later he gets a check and I'm like, no, wait a minute. And it's like, oh, it didn't matter. They just cut the check. It's fine.
Yeah, because they hand it to him directly. Well, no, he says, oh, 12. And the guy's like, oh, 012.
Yeah. So he immediately gets hired after Elizabeth Perkins storms into the office and interrupts. And
being a boss, I love it.
He meets John Lovitz, his fellow computer operator, who very smartly, I might add, says, like, slow down, man. There's no rush. Like, and it's like, yeah, you're 12. You haven't learned that the only reward for doing your work well is more work.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, slow down, buddy. You do exactly enough to impress everybody else, not your maximum. Whatever your maximum is irrelevant.
You figure out the level that makes you look good, and look pretty good,
right there.
And then that's
that is the peak of your efforts.
We see Elizabeth Perkins and another guy with the boss, Robert Loggia, like talking about
John Hurd from Home Alone.
John Hurd talking about like facts and figures and whatever, reports. And then Tom Hanks crashes into them because he's running to get things photocopied or Xeroxed, as the movie says. And the boss is like, nothing wrong with a little hustle, huh? And I'm like, no, shut up.
I mean,
shut up.
As we see in this, Robert Loggia is an incredibly old school boss who's like, I like the cut of this guy's jib, make him a vice president.
But also, like, here's my thing. They're talking, and Elizabeth Perkins is like, we use the focus test groups and the market studies and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, well, it didn't play well to kids. And then later, Tom Hanks is just giving input the same way a focus group would. Yeah. So, like, what the hell's the difference?
It feels right to Robert Loggia's gut.
I understand that, but I'm just like, how did a focus group, which is just children giving opinions about toys, how is that any different than what Tom Hanks does?
Honestly, I kind of really enjoyed this part of the movie because one of the things, and I don't want to get like too high up on this ladder of soapbox, so like feel free to push it out from under me at whatever point you've tired of this point that I'm making. But part of what I find really deeply frustrating about all media in the year that we live in now is there's no more gut feelings, and there's a middle ground to be struck between these two things. But it seems like in the era of entertainment that I like the best, we had a bunch of whack jobs of various qualifications going with their guts and choosing to make movies. Now, ultimately, this led to like inherently sort of racist thing, like not enough opportunity for people who weren't white and not enough opportunity for women. Like all that stuff is true, and I totally agree with that. So like that's the stuff I would like to edge out of it. But I do really feel that better things come from some human being or group of human beings making a decision based on their guts and their emotion, as opposed to like what a focus grouped thing thinks is best. And that's sort of what the message of this movie is like everybody needs to loosen up. Like we're all a little too uptight. That's not what this part is necessarily illustrating. That's sort of the message of the whole movie is like everybody should be a little bit more like a kid. We should all remember to be more childlike in our lives. It would suit us. But
Hook.
Yeah. I mean, a million movies, but It's like you look at a decision of like how theme park decisions are made or how movies get made now or even how music is made. And it's like all of our pop songs are written by the same 4 people. It's like a group of weirdo Swedes. I don't mean to be mean, but like just some weird group of Swedish men who write all the pop songs. Like they write Katy Perry and Lady Gaga and Rihanna, and like everybody's music essentially comes from the same 4 people. And it's like, of course it all sounds the same. It's 4 dudes who write all the songs. And it just is like there's no weirdos just like making choices. And I just think you get better art when weirdos are making choices. Like a movie studio head or your Robert Loggia in this just being like, I don't know, this toy looks better to me. I want kids to play with that one. And it's like, well, the focus group said this, like, I don't care. We're picking this one. And it's like, he'll be wrong sometimes, but also sometimes he'll be wildly successfully right. And it's like
I mean, that's how you get like Gremlins.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
yes. All of the favorite things of both of ours came from some person just being like, oh yeah, that's the thing that's right. And maybe they weren't, there's plenty of shit that we like that's terrible by objective standards.
Oh, of course.
Everything is made by a computer now. Just a computer spits out and it's like, okay, the next Marvel movie should have this many action scenes, this many pop songs. It should star these 3 actors. It's like everything's decided by an algorithm. And I'm just like, ugh.
I think that's what I liked about WandaVision so much was that it didn't feel like that. Like it didn't feel like, and this goes to here, and this is how everything. It was just like it's like Mandalorian. Fuck the Skywalkers. We're gonna talk about other people in space.
Mandalorian season 1, 100%. Mandalorian season 2, 100% was made by a computer.
Oh, bummer. I didn't finish season 2.
It's just like every episode of Mandalorian season 2 is a backdoor pilot for a different show, and then like it ties into the others, and I'm just like, no, this was a weird Jon Favreau, David.
Ice Spider knows best.
Exactly. So it's just like, part of me, I totally agree with you. Like what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like you should listen to focus group, but also I'm like,
not even that you should listen to focus groups. I just don't understand the difference between Tom Hanks, who is a 12-year-old, giving his opinion versus a focus group. Like, it's the same thing, right?
What I think it is, and this is not expressly conveyed in the movie, but this is just my read of it, is that Loggia remembers when there were no focus groups, and he likes it better when someone has an opinion and he likes it and agrees with it and can just be like, forget your focus groups. We're going with the big piano on the floor.
That's fair.
That's my read.
It's less about Robert Loggia and more about the actual information, because they say like it tested with focus groups. She's like, yeah, but the kids didn't play with it, so what does it matter? Yeah. So like, how is one 12-year-old different than a group of 12-year-olds? That's really where my question comes from.
It's just like the focus groups can be wrong, and I think that's what he's annoyed with here is like the data was incorrect, and that happens now too, right? Like when you make a movie with an algorithm, sometimes that movie's a bomb. It's not always a guaranteed hit. So. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question, but that my gut is that it's him like hearkening back to a more freewheeling executive time. I also love John Lovitz is like, hey, that lady will sleep with you if you so much as look at her. And Tom Hanks is like, well, I won't do that then. Which is
could have gotten a gay joke there. It was very prime.
It was on the tip of the tongue of old Mr. Lovitz.
Uh-huh.
But also like, hey, movie, you got it right. Stop with the romance part.
He's 12.
Yeah, like they could just be buds. He could just inspire her to loosen up, and they could jump on the trampoline and sleep in separate beds, and it could be fine. It's fine.
Or she could be interested in him and not know why he isn't like I'm doing all my normal flirting, and it's not like it can be a one-sided no kissing, no sex thing.
Exactly. Or that she tries to kiss him and he's like, I'm a 12-year-old boy, like that's...
Yeah, he's like, gross.
Yeah. So he gets his first paycheck. It's $187, which I think is like $600 now-ish, give or take. I looked it up and then I didn't write it down. But they go to the bank to cash it and they're like, we would like $100 bill, 3 dimes, and 87 ones. And the woman, this is one of those great, one line. I thought I came up with a good phrase for this, but like a one line Oscar where it's like she just is like sigh 1, 2, 3, and Hanks and the kid are like nodding along with her counting out the ones. It's such a good little performance. I love it. A day rate dynamo.
We also get a weird scene where Josh calls his mom And I was like, we don't need this.
Yeah, and it sounds like a creepy hostage situation. And John Lovitz is like listening to this phone call going like, what's he talking about?
Right?
They take their $187 and have a kid party, which is just pizza and silly string and ice cream.
Mm-hmm. A large cheese pizza in the back of a limousine in New York
exactly.
City.
Just for me. So he goes to this toy store and he's playing and then he's doing laser.
He goes to FAO Schwarz. Like, don't say he goes to this toy store.
He
goes to FAO Schwarz.
I assume that's in this version of the podcast. We talked at length about the FAO Schwarz and the Toys R Us in New York. He's playing laser tag, and it's a cute scene, but also I went the part where the mother of this other boy comes over to be like, all right, Timmy, time to go home. Who are you playing with? And she sees this full-grown ass Tom Hanks and they just run away.
Well, someone else says that. Like when he's like running around on the horse, some woman's like, stay away from the strange man, Mindy, or whatever. Yeah. I just miss I remember more the FAO Schwarz than King of Prussia Mall.
Oh.
Because we obviously went there more often. Because it wasn't in New York City. But they had the clear acrylic tube, like the Zordon tube, full of water and Barbie shoes.
Oh, interesting. I don't remember that, but that's cool.
Yeah, so as you walked in, there was this like clear tube, like light shining at the bottom, filled with water and Barbie shoes that like shot up.
Yeah, that goes back to my other point. I'm just like, there was just more dumb bullshit back then, and I miss it.
Yeah. Now that it's just those clean lines and you order from screens. Yeah. Like that's
not fun.
That's not satisfying to a child.
It's not satisfying to an adult either. Yeah,
I would just do it on my phone.
Nothing upsets me more than going into a physical store and they order the product online for me, which is something that has happened to me on more than one occasion. And I'm always like, why did I come here? Like, what? What does your corporate entity think that I want out of this experience? Because it is not you inputting my information into your website, I assure you.
It's because they think you're more likely to buy something if you're there.
No, I get that, but it's like, it's like, okay, well, we're going to order that for you and it'll come to your home in 3 weeks. And I'm like, well, then what? All right. I could have just...
Because if you show up to the store, you might grab something else. That's the whole point.
You couldn't. And I've been in many situations where like you cannot grab anything. You have to order it to you.
Like what? What store?
It was somewhere here in DC. It might have been an Apple store that I was like going in to order a like computer thing for work or something. But I was like, oh, I need this adapter. And like, yeah, we don't have that either, but we'll order it with this. And it's just like, come on.
Yeah, because I remember for a while, Hot Topic would do free shipping if you went into the store to order it. so you had to like show up into their store. Yeah. But I mean, at a Hot Topic makes sense because there's all kinds of little shit you could grab. So if you have to walk into the store, you're like, yeah, I might as well grab this fucking, I don't know, Baby Yoda earphones. Right. I don't know.
So Loggia, and he sees Hanks and they start talking about toys and they go over to the big piano. And there's a really nice scene where Hank starts playing it, and then they play.
It's the scene, I would say.
Yeah, they play Heart and Soul on the piano, and then they play. Loggia's like, all right, chopsticks, and they do chopsticks, and they leave this mostly in a wide shot, so it's definitely Robert Loggia looking really good doing this. And
it's them.
But I'm like, oh man, look at Robert Loggia go! Like he's looking great. Like he's really spry. How old do you know how old he is in this movie?
I don't.
How old?
In this movie?
The actual age of Robert Loggia, the person, not the character.
Yeah, at the time of filming, right? I'm gonna guess he is 65.
He's 58. It's like no wonder he's spry. He's not even 60.
Oh.
I thought he was 70.
Boy.
I was like, oh man, how good he looks. So maybe there is something to be said with modern medicine and taking care of ourselves a little better.
Yeah, I mean, isn't Tom Cruise like 60?
He's over 60, yeah.
And Elvira is almost 70.
Yeah. Well, I have no offense to her intended. Like she like many people of her. Look at Shatner, he's 90, but they both have work done.
Yeah, but I think her work doesn't look terrifying.
No, she looks great. She looks absolutely great. She's awesome. More power to her. And Shatner looks great too. He's 90. He does not look it.
I don't think I've seen Shatner.
Oh, you
lately.
Didn't see him go up into space?
No.
He rode one of the millionaire or billionaire douches rockets up into space, the Bezos one.
Oh, fun.
Honestly, it was really kind of awesome how it reduced him to being like a blubbering idiot. Like he was clearly so overcome by the emotion of what he saw that it really impacted him. It was like quite lovely. I've heard from many people that Shatner's kind of an asshole, or is an asshole, not kind of. But it was like so nice to see it be such a profound. As someone who's a space nerd, it was like, oh man, how cool is it that this was such a profound experience with him, for him. But look, you should look up that clip because he's 90 years old. He does not look it.
Do you think people? I mean, prior to this movie, do you think people ever did this? Like
The piano?
try to play a real song?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, obviously, once the movie came out, people.
No,
I'm sure
of
people were
course
doing that, but
did.
like,
yeah. If you know how to play the piano, why would you not?
well, it's because it's hard to play with.
Yeah,
your feet.
but it's fun. I'm pretty sure now it's behind like ropes, and the reason I'm sure is because as soon as Hanks and Loggia get off it and everybody claps, you see a bunch of kids just swarm it and are like plonk 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 plonk.
Yeah, that thing would get turned off. Accidentally get turned off a lot.
I want to see someone play Toccato and Fugue in D minor with their feet. Dun, 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 dun.
I would pay a lot of money, and by that I mean I would pay $1.29 on iTunes.
I want to see it though. I don't want to hear. Like I'm sure it sounds fine.
Yeah, for a video clip.
I want to see. It would probably take because I think it's like a 4-key chord in each hand, so it would take at least 4 people to play it, if not more.
Probably.
But I
yeah.
want to see pum 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 pum, but from the feet.
No, Staccato and Fugue is the spooky house song. Ba-da-da, ba-da-da, isn't it?
I thought it was dun 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 dun.
No, that's Wagner. That's opera.
Okay, maybe you're right.
Toccata and Fugue is the like ba-da-da, ba-da-da.
I think you're correct.
I learned a few things about music in college.
I believe you. I'm pulling it up.
That was more for me.
Oh. Okay, you're right. Wagner is what I wanted.
Got it.
I think Toccato and Fugue might be impossible on the foot piano.
No, I think you could do high knees.
You need a team of 12.
Yeah, and doing
Very
high knees.
synchronized people. So he gets instantly promoted. He's vice president of product development, and we have Deborah Jo Rupp from that '70s show playing his secretary.
And WandaVision, actually.
really?
Speaking of, she's in the first
very
episode.
Beleaguered Deborah Jo Rupp in this performance, really good. Just like
It's funny, I didn't notice her until the party.
oh, okay,
She's talking to Robert Loggia, and I was like, "Is that Kitty / Mrs. Hart?"
Yeah. There's a great scene, like you kind of only see it in the background, but Hanks is in there and his friend comes to visit, and she comes walking in with this tray full of snacks, and it's hard to see exactly what it is, but it looks like about a quart of Oreos, like they're bowls, like a quart of Oreos, a quart of Cheetos, a quart of M&Ms or Skittles, and a quart of potato chips, and I was like, yeah, that's a kid order.
I mean, even me as an adult does that sometimes. I'm just like, I'm just gonna buy some Oreos and chips.
Oh yeah,
and Cheez-Its.
This is like what you put out for a party, but he just has it for his tea time in his office, which is what I thought was so great about it.
Yeah.
We go to Elizabeth Perkins and John Hurd at home, and Josh is on the milk carton, which is pretty good.
Yeah. Again, we don't need to be reminded that there's a very real tragedy hidden in the gooey center of this movie.
It was like just 4 degrees to the left of the fun romp we're having is a family that's breaking apart, perhaps permanently.
Yeah, a very sour center to this candy.
Yeah. And this is where we get the first of 2 instances in this movie where they come up with a good product on their own. They're showing off this Empire State Building that turns into a robot, and Tom Hanks is like, I mean, why would anyone want to play with this? I don't get it. Wouldn't it be better if it was like a bug that turned into a robot? And everyone's like, oh yeah, a bug that turns into a robot. That makes so much sense. And I was like, yeah, that's a good toy.
Because that was a toy.
No, eventually it was, but I don't think it was at the time.
No, it was a toy before this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least according to IMDb, there was a sect of the Transformers that was called like Insecticons or Insectoids or something. Okay. And also it became Transformers Beast Wars.
Well, I remember Beast Wars, but I didn't remember bugs in Beast Wars. I remembered...
There were a couple, but the problem was they all were the same size. So it was like a T-Rex and a gorilla and a rhino and a spider, and they were all the same size.
Yeah, that is a problem. Although I think that's the same deal with the original Transformers line of like Optimus Prime is an 18-wheeler, but I think he's the same size as Bumblebee.
What was Bumblebee?
Isn't he a Volkswagen?
Oh.
No, he's...
We did the movie a while ago.
The good Bumblebee with what's-her-face from True Grit, I'm pretty sure he's a bug. But I think in the other things, he's like a Camaro.
Haley Steinfeld? Yeah. She's in True Grit? She's the little girl?
In the remake, the Coen Brothers one.
I didn't know that was her.
Yeah. So Josh gets this absurd apartment with 15-foot ceilings and a jacuzzi.
I love the apartment. How did he rent that?
Well, he's a vice president now, so presumably he's making like fuck you money.
Beyond that, how? But like, do you not have to like
Apparently
do a credit check?
Apparently you just need a lot of money and you just hand it to a realtor and they're like, okay.
Like, as someone who moved apartments at the end of last year, like, there was a lot involved. I had to give bank statements and like bills and pay stubs.
Well, he presumably has a very good pay stub, and at the time they're like, good enough. I honestly don't know if credit had been invented as like the arbiter of all human existence in America yet.
God, what a time.
Because I don't know if you know this, but like I was recently reading about this where somebody went overseas for a couple of years. They were like living in Australia.
And credit's just not a thing there.
Well, but they didn't leave their American bank account open. And so when they came back to America, they had zero credit of any kind. Like their credit score was 0. And so they had to start over as a full grown adult, like get a baby training wheels credit card and like try desperately to get, because they had lived overseas and didn't know about this. And they closed their bank accounts. And it's like, you literally have to like leave a bank account open and keep it functional if you want to keep your credit. Otherwise you get toast.
God, we need to eat the rich.
But anyway, he gets this absurd apartment.
Except Dolly Parton. She can be spared.
Just one rich person is what I think. You eat one rich guy, and then the rest of them, they're all straighten up.
But then you have to pick, like, do you do Musk or Bezos?
Bezos.
Because frankly, I think we could do 2. I think we could squeeze 2
fine.
out.
We have Musk and Bezos. There's this montage of like the cool toys / child bachelor life, and as I was watching this, I was like, oh, Blank Check is just this montage for 90 minutes.
And also a creepy romance.
Yeah, also a creepy romance. That's true.
Except it's actually a child in that one.
Yeah. Well, you're not thinking of Milk Money, are you? That's the one I think where the child is trying to sleep with the full-grown adult. Does he try to sleep with that woman?
No, in the end of Blank Check, he kisses the adult.
I thought he tries to get the woman to date his dad. Am I thinking of a different movie?
You're thinking of a different movie. He is fully trying to date her.
Okay. I did not.
And then in the end, they kiss, and it's gross.
Well, yuck. There's this insanely formal work party for no apparent reason. Like, it's not Christmas. It's not like a product launch.
We needed a like kickoff to the year, like fiscal year, or some reason for this party.
I believe it was supposed to be a Christmas party, and at some point somebody was like, all right, look, you already got the mom like weeping openly in 2 scenes. The dad's disappeared.
Oh my God, I can't imagine Christmas.
You cannot do Christmas in this movie. I'm sorry. Absolutely not. That's like the one good time a studio note was useful. It's like, please do not make it Christmas time.
Yeah, you're right. That makes a lot of sense. The baby corn scene. I don't know if that's as iconic to other people.
Our house. I do that bit about 50% of the time I eat baby corn, much to my girlfriend's opposite of amusement.
Well, I remember last year during quarantine, there was a local drag queen doing virtual brunch. And part of it, the beginning of virtual brunch was showing off their drinks and snacks. And one week they were like, and I have baby corn as a snack. And I was like, oh, I forgot about baby corn. So I went to next time I went to the grocery store that week, I was like, I'm gonna grab some baby corn.
They're outrageously expensive. I love them for like stir fry and stuff. Like I got them in water for doing like stir fries for dinner. But I'm just always like, why is this so freaking expensive? It's like,
is it literally just a baby corn?
I'm 90% sure it is.
Or because I know baby carrots are big carrots that get
baby
cut
corn
and
is
whittled.
definitely not cut down regular corn. It may be a different variety of corn that only grows so big, as opposed to like the nascent version of something else. But it is definitely corn.
I know that, but I just meant like baby corn. Baby carrot is a trick and a lie. So I didn't know if baby corn was some kind of.
Baby carrot is actually kind of fascinating because it started with them taking carrots that wouldn't be sold normally and turning them into a sellable product.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like that.
Have you ever seen how they're made? It's like
it's the water,
a really
right?
high-powered water jet that can cut through like wood and other materials, but they use it to cut the carrots into bites. The only actual baby carrots that are baby carrots are the ones that come with the top still attached, like at fancy joints.
Oh, gotcha.
But he also has a
There's
great
also a moment
Western beaded white tux and tails.
Yeah, where did he get
It
this?
seems like he walked into the tux rental place and they bamboozled him. Is what happened.
I would rather see that scene.
Of course,
than
yes.
Cut scenes of him talking to his sad mom, and show me him walking into a tuxedo rental place.
Because like.
And be like, I gotta show off or
I gotta make a good
I
impression.
gotta, yes, that's the word.
And
Thank you.
It's like a little old Italian man Taylor. Be like, oh, I make you the star of the show. It's Mario.
Or he goes in there and there's like the owner's kid is like, I like this sparkly one. He's like, all right, I like that one too. So he eats caviar with Elizabeth
Also,
Perkins.
did you catch that at the beginning of the thing? I don't know where he picks it up or if he brought it with him, but he's eating a banana and he like puts the peel down on the start of the sequence we're talking about now, just before he starts eating all the snacks where he dips the carrot in the thing like 9 times and eats it. He puts down a full banana peel. And I was like, did he bring a banana from home? Like there's no way full unpeeled bananas are on this spread for a tuxedo party.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the weirdest tuxedo party ever. But he eats the caviar, and when you're 12, you know enough to grab a napkin. Because he's like, blah, 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 and he fully spits it out all over the floor. And I was like, you're not 5, you're 12.
Yeah, he does later grab a napkin, so it's like, he should spit it into a napkin, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. And so now Bob's Burgers has poisoned my brain in a lot of things, and this is one of them because they directly reference this scene in this movie. So as soon as they got to the limo, I was like, oh, right, the movie Big with Thomas Hanks. He was paid $10,000 in hush money from Big Limo.
I also really like at the party John Hurd as like a totally miserable drunk. It's a pretty good performance.
Mm-hmm. He's just miserable all around. He's good at this miserable.
Yeah, but in particular, this sort of like slurred speech is like, yeah, this stupid asshole's VP of product sales development or whatever that means. Like, it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They duck out together. He is completely delighted by the limo, which is very funny to me.
Of course, when you're a little kid, limos are exciting.
And this is the most relatable scene in the movie to me because it's a woman throwing herself at a man and him being completely oblivious to it. Only this doesn't have the part where like sometime later, either the woman herself or friends who witnessed it were like, hey, dummy, that woman was interested in you. And me being like, what? Nah.
No way.
I was like, hey, it me. I'm in the movie.
He has an indoor trampoline. They go to his apartment.
This is the part in the movie where I was like, oh, she should be picking up on clues better. Because he has a sign on the door that says something akin to homework stinks.
Yeah, it's like he's got like Josh's pad or something.
Josh's place or Josh's pad, but then also homework stinks and like, no parents zone or something like that. And I was like, all right, we have to recognize that there is something happening here, lady.
Yeah, well, she walks in and there's it's a twin bunk bed, right? I mean, I guess they probably don't make queen size bunk beds.
They
or king
do
size.
make bunk beds with a larger bed on the bottom and a twin on top. I've seen that. That's like popular.
I've seen that, but I've never seen like two kings.
I don't think they make stacked kings, but that's very funny to picture.
Honestly, I think we just found a new product.
The weight,
we're gonna go to Shark Tank.
The weight distribution,
twin kings,
would be a problem.
There is no free shipping offered.
I'm talking about the weight distribution of balancing the top bunks so that it doesn't turn into one king sandwiching another person to death inside a second king. It's more.
No, I think beds can be stable like that.
It's more that like the pillars are going to have to hold up a lot of weight, and then there's going to have to be really strong horizontal supports in there.
Yeah, but like beds are already supported by legs. Just make them tall.
Right, but I'm saying the taller you get, the more wibbly wobbly it gets is the problem.
That's for the consumer to figure out. We're talking 80s business logic.
Exactly.
That's the consumer's problem.
I also was pretty impressed by how well Elizabeth Perkins is able to jump in either her pantyhose or nylons that she's wearing. It's like, that's two very
slippery.
He's doing it in socks, which is also very slippery. I was always a barefoot jumper, which I know is like uncouth if you're in public, but on a friend's house.
Yeah. Yeah, she must be so confused by him.
Yeah, it's almost like she'd have to think he was some sort of developmentally disabled.
Or neurodivergent.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have the term for that back then, so I think they probably would have just used a blanketed terrible term. But I'm just saying, it's like...
Yeah, they would not have used anything kind.
She would have thought that he was handicapped mentally in some capacity. I also really like the part where he gets on with the trampoline and he's like, "Come on!" and he just absolutely yoinks her onto the trampoline. He grabs the wrist and she's like, "Whoa!" and suddenly she's on the trampoline.
She's so slippery.
Yeah. It's her dress is like a very clearly a slip slidey material, so it's just like whoop, up she goes.
And then we get a romance montage, and I just like, or not montage, some scenes of romance, and I'm just like, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. I do not want to see these two people having a romance. It's really, really weird to me. Like, obviously it works because these two actors have actual chemistry. Like, I do think Elizabeth Perkins...
And they're both real adults.
Like, in a different movie, if it was Tom Hanks and Elizabeth Perkins, I'd be like, great casting, well done. But in this movie...
Oh my God,
one of them is secretly 12. She does a lot of really good physical acting, too, with this whole situation. Like, all the stuff in the apartment. Like, in addition to, like, her performance is good in other ways, but the physical movements and stuff is really good from her.
In this, like, dating sequence, they're at a pier, and he fully misses that Zoltar is there. And I was like, how?
Yeah.
There's no way.
He walks right by it, and I always found this scene to be a little silly, especially watching it now, like, with a more critical eye. The other thing I think is really funny, though, is... like, why on earth would this woman sleep over in the bunk bed? Presumably her actual home is not that far away. Wouldn't she much rather... It's like, if we're not going to get down to business, I'm like, all right, well, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to go sleep in my big boy bed. Thank you.
Yeah, I always wondered if it was, like, supposed to be some kind of, like, spying thing. It's not, but the movie could have done that.
So there's like two little quick scenes here. One is John Hurd really giving her shit while they're in the car together, and she's like changing the radio and acting like you can already see Tom Hanks having an influence on her is what this scene is supposed to get across. And Hurd is like having none of it. And then he goes to play, I guess it's called paddleball. It looks like they're playing racquetball, but outside.
It looks like outdoor racquetball.
So I'm not, the paddles are different, but I'm not, I know New York has a particular subset of outdoor park games that are sort of unique. To New York, they have handball as well, which handball but with paddles. But I love the two of them. Like Hurd teaches him the game, he's immediately much better at it because he's much more athletic looking. And then Hurd starts cheating, and it turns into two brothers squabbling over the ball. It's just very good stuff.
Yeah, well, because he's clearly trying to be like, well, I'm good at this game, so I'm gonna play you in this game and beat you. Like it's super douchebag move.
Yeah. It's just a power thing. It's like you've showed me up at work, so I'm gonna humiliate you.
Yeah. So
Elizabeth Perkins comes to the rescue. He got punched, which we don't see. I was disappointed that John Hurd didn't punch him on screen.
Yeah. I would have liked that, especially like that could have been a cut to him sitting on the couch.
Be the punch into the cut. I thought that was strange.
And then he tries to slut shame Elizabeth Perkins.
Yeah, that sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah. Eat shit,
and
dude.
Also, not for nothing, but if that's the case, if she's sleeping right at the top, what do you think she's into you for, you dim shit? Like,
well, also, I don't like that her line is, "It's not like that anymore."
Right.
Why was her character ever like that?
It's not necessary.
She's clearly competent at her job.
Right. And then of course we get the line that's supposed to be like nudging you in the ribs, where it's like, "What's so special about him?" Well, he's a grown up. Ah ha 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 ha.
Yeah. There's also like this weird like Italian Benihana situation they go to for Josh's birthday.
The dough tossing old Italian man is such a treat. It's such a crazy. He starts hucking dough at people.
It is the weirdest restaurant.
He's throwing little dough balls at people who are catching them in their mouth and eat them. Which like I eat raw pizza dough, but I don't think most people find that very appetizing.
It's kind of like when was it like Chevy's like slightly nicer
the Mexican place
but not. Yeah, it's slightly nicer, like Mexican food. It's not like super upscale. Yeah. You could go get like a dough ball the tortilla from the tortilla press.
People would huck you you'd play with it at the table.
And I would make a turtle with it and then eat the raw turtle.
Yeah, at first he's throwing dough to other people and they're eating it, and then he's got like is it a tambourine? He's got a target of some sort.
It's a tambourine.
So everyone's like carefully tossing it, and he's catching the dough in his mouth, and then the little shit that's Josh's friend starts throwing speedballs at this guy. I'm like, come on, kid, this is like a fun thing.
Yeah. This is when I realized that I thought a birthday wish would have been a really cool resolution to this. It would have been
a cool twist on it for sure.
That like they realized like, oh, we're like. 3 weeks into waiting for the thing, and they're like, oh, it's taking forever, and they realize it's Josh's birthday, and they're like, oh, you can wish it.
Kid logic, this should have been the like what now would be the low point of the movie. Like in a modern movie, this would have been the low point. Like they build it up to the birthday, big wish, nothing happens. You know, that would be the low sad point of the movie now. He ditches Billy for Elizabeth Perkins, which makes Billy very sad, of course.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
Elizabeth Perkins in this sequence, which is where they do walk by the Zoltar, she kind of looks like Millie Bobby Brown a little bit to me. Like very in the eyes.
Huh, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I'll have to rewatch.
So they go, I think it's Coney Island, although they don't refer to it by name.
No, it's Sea Park, New York.
Right, but I think it's actually Coney Island.
Oh, like where it was filmed, you mean?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's the big wooden roller coaster in Coney Island, which I can't remember the name of.
Oh, maybe.
It's on my
guess.
freaking bucket list, and I can't remember the name of the thing. Oh well. Anyway, it's a very old wooden roller coaster in Coney Island. They're on a couple different roller coasters, but and this is the part where you mentioned they just totally walk right by Zoltar, and he doesn't notice it.
Yeah, and so they're dancing romantically because there's a big band.
Yeah, also, the idea of a big band still being entertainment at the Boardwalk in 1988 seems categorically insane to me.
I mean, maybe in like a vintagey kind of night kind of way.
The people dancing to this big band should be Tom Hanks, Elizabeth Perkins, and then all of the people in the picture at the Overlook Hotel. Like, the fact that it's like other youngish couples is bananas.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I would go to this because I am an old weirdo and I enjoy nonsense. Like, this would be something I would find.
Yeah, I think this would be lovely to do.
I would find this very nice to get dressed up and go do. But I am a weirdo. Like, I have a movie podcast.
Yeah. But he's like, hey, I have something to tell you. And then he kisses her instead. And I'm like, no, you were so close.
And I do really like, he has so much panic in his eyes at this moment. It's such a really real feeling moment. It's one of those little micro things. It's like, oh man, he's so good.
Yeah.
Also, okay, we got to talk about this. I'm sorry. It's not a topic I want to talk about. We don't have to belabor this point. He would be like kissing a catfish, right? It would be the worst kiss anyone's ever had. He's 12 years old. He has absolutely...
You mean a literal catfish.
It would be like a gaping open mouth just slobbering at you. He has no... Look, nobody on earth is a good kisser the first time they do it. That's why you do it when you're a child with other childs or whatever, you know, not an adult. You're under 18 or whatever. If you got your first kiss when you're 35, mazel, I hope your life is wonderful. I'm not trying to dunk on you, but I'm saying like if you get this out of the way when you're a kid, it's because you're both very bad at it.
Yes, I agree.
She has kissed quite a few people at this point in her life. She's a 30-year-old woman. She's clearly very in her prime, and this goofball child would just be licking at her basically.
Oh God, sounds like an SNL sketch.
It's outrageous to me that they have him be a good kisser here. It's like I was like, oh, this is gonna be funny because he's gonna be the worst kisser in the world. Nope, it's just them like
would have been a better ending. You know what's not a good ending? Them having sex.
It's so upsetting. It's so stupid.
It's so weird. Like, why did you make that choice, Penny Marshall?
It's not just that it's like, oh, they go back to the apartment and we cut to the next morning, like a rom-com from, you know, a certain brand of rom-com.
Oh, no. They have to let you know.
He's touching her boob, and it's like a vibes. It's so weird.
Ugh.
It's like, there's also this soft, slow piano. It's just like warm, tinkling, like...
Trying to be tender.
And I'm just screaming at the television. Cut away. Cut to anything else.
Wildly
just
uncomfortable.
Abruptly cut to the Zoltar machine or something.
Just smash cut to Zoltar.
Speaking of Zoltar, that is what Tom Hanks would kiss like.
What, a
Zoltar
machine?
Machine gut be like with the mouth going open and shut. That is what Tom Hanks would kiss like. And then we cut immediately to upbeat jazz for him just like strutting into work. I just got laid and now he's drinking coffee.
Ron Swanson in a red shirt.
And he's an adult now. And I'm just like, ugh, I hate this so much.
Yeah, I really didn't like this like third act moment where he's like becoming an adult. I'm like, but he's 12.
It sucks that he's becoming an adult.
He is literally 12 years old, 13, whatever.
Yeah, somebody starts talking. They go to this fancy dinner party, and it looks like the worst party in history. Everybody's wearing really nice clothes and looks very bored, and they're talking about a PBS documentary on Columbus. And
oh my God.
And this poor kid comes in and is like, hey, Dad, can you help me with my algebra? And he's like, shut up, son. I'm talking about PBS with the grown-ups. So Tom Hanks is...
We started dinner. Shouldn't you be asleep?
Exactly, because it's a movie and the children disappear at 7:15. Again, I have to
Bid good night to my guest at 7 p.m.
I have to know, like, what is the, like, this is a thing that only exists in movies. It has to be. It has to be. Because this is not a baby. It's a full-grown kid. He's like 10 or 12.
Yeah, he's like 13. He's studying the same things Tom Hanks is.
Right. And so Hanks goes in and teaches him algebra via Larry Bird and basketball stats.
I mean, if we're talking about Larry, what about his Aunt Tilda? That's all I'm going to say. You got Aunt Tilda?
Yeah, so this is like his growing up montage. Meanwhile, the list comes in, so Billy comes and is like, Tom Hanks, like, we got the list, we can get out of here. But he's in the middle of a project. This is a legitimately good idea too. It's like a digital choose your own adventure comic book. I think it's this cool idea.
It's an app now called Chapters or Stories.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying it's an actual good idea in the movie.
Well, and later they say it's only going to cost $20 for the machine, and I was like, how?
Yeah, I did. I think it's either $18.95 or $19.95 that they say is the price point, and I looked, and it's like about $50 now, which honestly feels like about the right cost for something like this for a kid.
But I thought, like, to me, this machine is probably similar-ish in scope to a Game Boy, and weren't those like $50?
I think a Game Boy was more expensive than that, but I don't think it's quite as elaborate as a Game Boy because it's just displaying images.
I guess, but the whole idea of like the cartridge element to it just seemed like...
No, you're right. It definitely is more elaborate, but I think it's more akin to essentially the text-based adventure that Tom Hanks was playing earlier. Like, I don't know what those computer games would have cost, but I think it's basically one of those. Like, it's text and a couple of static images. I just don't think it's that much data stored on the disc.
That's fair. Because I guess we did have that, like, maybe Fisher-Price or something learning fake computer.
It had, like...
That you could plug the cartridges into?
You could run like a math tutorial or like a spelling tutorial off it. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to Google that. I want to look that up.
Yeah, so I think it's more realistic than you're giving it credit for. But I agree, it's like a pretty far fetched product for the time.
Yeah. Well, also at the price point, I was like, I feel like this should probably be like a little more expensive than $20.
I do see a world in which it's a pretty basic and cheap thing because it's not doing all that much. Like it's more akin to like a Tiger handheld than a Game Boy.
Yes, or the Pixter that was like after my time.
I don't think I know that.
It was basically like it looked like a PDA.
Oh,
it was called the Pixter, and you could plug cartridges into it and play games and stuff and draw on it.
I honestly think it's almost like a viewfinder, or ViewMaster, but with like a button to go to jump to slide 6 as opposed to slide 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking of it as in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so they're working on this. Perkins wants to define the relationship, and he's extremely confused by this. He's like, I thought we just had sex forever. What?
Yeah, because, again, he's 12. Right. So the best friend, Billy? Is it Billy? Shows up with where the Zoltar machine is because he talked to Josh's mom, and his mom is really sad because this movie needs to remind us that there's an HBO drama happening behind the scenes.
Mercedes Rule's reading of He Had a Birthday out the window is soul crushing. They're talking back and forth, and she's playing with the walkie-talkie, and Billy gets all excited because he thinks it's Josh, and it's just the mom. She opens the window, and they're talking a little, and it's just she's so quiet. It's so soft and so small. He had a birthday. It's just like, oh man, this woman is never going to recover from this.
No. Yeah, there's an HBO drama series starring Toni Collette happening behind the scenes of Big.
Yeah, it's crazy that, like I said, my ending that just undoes all of that is such a better movie. Like, it's so much better.
Yeah. So he shows up. The kid says fuck.
Yeah.
It's one of apparently one of like 398 or 388 movies that have PG and have the word fuck in them.
Because it's not a mother effer and it's not a fuck you. It's like it's an adjective.
Yeah, it's fucking. It's nice fucking model in Beetlejuice. Who the fuck do you think you are in this movie? Or something like that.
You're fucking 12.
Yeah.
So there's a nice part where she falls asleep, Elizabeth Perkins, and Tom Hanks sneaks the ice cave game into play. And then it leads to this.
Well, that's what inspires him.
But it leads to this weird, sad montage of him watching children. And like the part at which he's watching his class photo being taken, wearing a trench coat.
Oh, it's creepy. I hate it.
I'm like, the teacher would be like, excuse me, sir, what are you doing? Are you one of these child's parents? Because if not, leave now before we call the cops.
Yeah, I hate it. It's so creepy. Because it's weird that because right before this, he's like, I have a very important business meeting. And the kid's like, you're 12. I found the Zoltar machine. And I'm like, why does Josh just like not want to be a kid?
Right,
Like, what
right,
happened?
Yeah. It's like he had sex, and so now he's like, well, this is better than baseball, which, like, fair. I get the instinct.
Valid.
But the part that, like, I feel of two minds here, because I do think it really sucks that adults cannot interact with children in public in any way. And, like, don't get me wrong, like, it's good for people to be safe. But I think of, when I lived out in Frederick, I was one day walking in the park, and there was a family doing like not like a photo shoot formally, but like the family had a nice camera and the kids were wearing their Halloween costumes and taking pictures. And the kid was dressed like Indiana Jones. He had a little whip and he was like, zipping around. And I'm like 20 feet from this child, 25 feet from this child. I'm on a walking path. I never break stride, but I look over and I see the kid and I smile. I'm like, oh my God, that's like me when I was a kid. That's so nice. And the kid looks at me and I pretend to tip my hat and I was like, Dr. Jones. And I never broke stride. I never walked over. I did not talk to this like that. It was Dr. Jones with a fake hat tip. And the kid ran and cowered behind his parents. And it's like, there needs to be a middle ground between like stranger danger and like passing interactions.
A smile and a nod.
Like, what I did, I think, is socially fine. Tom Hanks standing and leering at this children's class photo, I do think is worthy of concern. It's like they would make us go do first day of school coverage every year when I worked at the newspaper. And I was like, I wore like 9 press badges because I was just like, I would call the school and be like, hello, I'm going to do this. Will this be a problem? Because I will pick a different school. And like, I would also sometimes like walk into the office and be like, hello, if anybody says anything, I'm from the newspaper. You can call my boss. This is his phone number. Because I was just like, I am not having this problem. But it sucks that I had to do that.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like, I totally understand why people have their concerns and the world we live in is scary. People are afraid. But it's like, there's a middle ground somewhere in there that I think we should find. But it's not let Tom Hanks leer at this class photo.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's like when I ran into that child at gawking over all the NECA figures at Target. And I was like, this is a small trip. I'm looking at a small trip. I have to do something.
Yeah. It's like you can say a nice thing in passing to a kid and not be a creep. That's fine. Like, that's an okay thing for society to have.
I'm going to wave at a baby. I like to wave at a baby.
Yeah, people are like, oh God, how dare you look at my child. So he comes clean to Perkins, and she does not believe.
And of course she doesn't believe him.
It's an insane thing, objectively.
Well, also, I like that there's only 20 minutes left in this movie, and he's like, I have to tell you the truth. And I'm like, I feel like that ship sailed.
At the point where you had sex with this woman, it's over, bud.
Mm-hmm.
She also, in this scene, she is wearing the ugliest blouse. It's like, it's designed to look like she's wearing a tie, but the tie is like 19 feet long. Like, it dangles to almost her knees. It's such a bad look.
She's got some weird fashion choices
definitely
in the movie.
Does.
I'll say
she
that.
Definitely does. This is the worst, in my opinion.
Well, earlier I wrote the note, what is Elizabeth Perkins wearing, with no context, so apparently there was another outfit that I thought was worse.
Her fancy dress outfit is pretty bonkers.
What, the black dress with the ruffles
it's
and
like
the tights?
very poofy.
It's very 80s, though. So they are doing their presentation, and Josh, like, realizes, like, I have to go home and fix this.
So he just, like, flees this business meeting, which is kind of bonkers.
Yeah. I mean, if you're an 80s businessman...
Right. Also, there's a kind of a funny moment here where Tom Hanks in the presentation earlier for the buildings that turn into robots kept putting his hand up and be like, I don't get it. And so John Hurt is like, I don't get it. And it's like, everyone kind of looks at him and it's like, it's a digital comic book. What's not to get, you dingus? Like, this is
very clearly obvious.
This is a very obvious product. What are you talking about? But I feel like that's very rare in a movie that there's a legitimately good and interesting product.
Yeah, I think so. I also feel like there's not enough cocaine in these boardrooms.
Not nearly enough. There's a lot of Pepsi product placement.
Like, that's what Kitty from that 70s show should have brought in on a tray.
Big old bowl of Coke.
I was thinking more like a pile on a plate. Like in a peak, like a mountain.
Tony Montana.
Yes, exactly.
So she chases Josh.
I'm sorry, real quick. Sorry, unrelated to anything, but you said Tony Montana. Did you know that apparently Drew Barrymore took a photo of Michelle Pfeiffer to the wig stylist for Scream and said, I want this hair.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's what...
It's exactly the hair.
As soon as she said that, I was like, yeah, no, that's 100% the hair.
That's amazing. whatever the opposite of Stay Tuned is, you can mark that down for Scarface, because that movie is 3 hours long and I just have zero interest.
No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
We have now doomed ourselves to just all of our listener request month requests are going to be Scarface.
Well, then it looks like something's going to happen, and it's going to get hacked, and we're going to
freeze the ballots like the NBA.
Sure.
We'll just feel for the cold ones.
Oh, is that a thing?
There's a rumor that I think it was Patrick Ewing. There's a very famous NBA rumor. I'm getting the person wrong, so forgive me. Maybe it was Jordan. I don't remember. But there's a very famous NBA rumor that they froze the ballot froze the thing so that when the person reached in, it was like sunk to the bottom or some sort of something. There was like chicanery.
Interesting.
Anyway, Josh runs away. Perkins chases after him. He goes to Zoltar.
She fully doesn't see him get in the cab and drive away.
No.
Like, she's not out. He's driven away in the
Billy
cab,
sees him.
and she goes out. But she comes out and she's like, Josh, show me where he went. And she's like, where did he drive off to? And I was like, you didn't see him? Why do you think he knows Josh?
He's yelling, yeah, Josh, go.
Oh, he is.
He's yelling. Right. That she hears him, and it's like, what? A clue. So he goes and does the Zoltar wish. She talks to him. They have this really, like, in another movie would be very sweet of like, there's a million reasons for me to go and only one reason to stay, and that's you. And it's like very nice, except for the fact that, again, this is a 12-year-old boy.
He's 12.
Well,
he's
13
12.
now, excuse me.
13, sorry.
So he's like, why don't you come with me? And her response is not exactly this, but essentially, no thanks, bud. Which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely not.
First of all, do I just live alone as a 12-year-old girl? Like, how do you explain that? Like, my parents aren't going to re-raise me. Like, that doesn't make sense. There's a lot of logistical.
You're going to live with me now.
And also, like, I don't want to it would take all of the money in the world for me to have to restart at 12 as a 35-year-old person. Like, thank you.
No, thank you.
I do not have any interest in that. Now,
No,
a day
thank you.
trip where I can like look in on a thing and then fondly remember, sure, okay, interesting.
Well, I wouldn't even mind jumping back into a 12-year-old body for a day.
No,
just for
way.
To be like experience that again for the day.
No way, not for all the money out.
For one day,
I would have zero interest. It sucks so bad.
No, I'm down for a day.
Your body's a nightmare. Everyone's mean. No, thank you.
No, when you're 12, your body's not a nightmare yet because you can do like tumbles and somersaults and not have to worry about anything.
Your body's a nightmare of hormones.
At 12, I think is less hormonal.
No, that's like peak puberty.
13 is peak puberty.
I mean, maybe for you, but I was experiencing the nightmarish, like, oh, my pits stink now. Oh, all of me is hair. What? So she does this like kind of funny, like, look me up in 10 years, which I'm genuinely surprised isn't a movie.
Yeah, I imagine that they were like, no. I mean, Penny Marshall was like, we're good. Yeah. We did it.
Big 2, Tom Hanks is 23 and Elizabeth Perkins is 40, whatever. 30.
It would just Isn't one of Tom Hanks' kids? Doesn't one of Tom Hanks' kids look like him?
Yeah, Colin looks a lot like him.
They could just do it now, and Colin would play Josh, and Elizabeth Perkins would come back.
Colin is like in his 40s, I think. Like he's a pretty old kid. Yeah.
Oh, is he that old?
Tom Hanks just turned 65. That's part of the reason we're doing a Tom Hanks month of Palooza here. It's a big B day for old Mr. Hanks.
I remember when it was announced that he had COVID. Yeah. It was like that's when it got real for everybody.
It's like the NBA got canceled. Like, oh man, this might be real. Then Tom Hanks said it, and everyone's like, stop what you're doing.
They hit the e-stop on the world. They were like, Tom Hanks has COVID.
I also love, so they're like sitting in the car having this long goodbye, which this scene goes on way too long. And she's like, you won't remember me. And I'm like, lady, he had sex with you. He's going to remember that for a very, very, very long time. Also, do you think he's going to forget the time when he was 12 and for a 2-month period became a 30-year-old very successful toy executive? Like, what are you talking about?
What do you think's going to happen at work? Like, she's going to go back to work and be like, well, Josh is gone.
The only thing that makes sense is she's like, I don't know what happened to him. He just ran away. Like, she has to play completely dumb here. Like, she has to even...
Otherwise, they're going to think she murdered him.
She even has to go to the length of, like, we were starting to have a relationship. We had slept together. I don't know what's happening.
Let's file a police report.
She has to go into full defense mode because you're right. People are going to be like, oh, she's shoved him in the sewer.
Except I just realized he used his real name.
Right.
So they're going to also realize that the missing kid was also named Josh
Yes,
Baskin.
exactly. Somebody was going to put that together. It's like the police are going to put that together and be like, now wait a minute here. And then it's going to be like, oh, was he this like complete psycho, like drifter lunatic, which is probably what they would come up with.
Yeah. Thank God she kisses him on the forehead.
Yes.
He clearly goes in for a kiss, and she's like, grabs his head and is like, we're going to do a forehead kiss, buddy.
You. But this part is what's weird to me is, like I said before, he starts walking to his house and suddenly he's a little kid in adult clothes. And I'm like, the magic only worked when he went to bed. Like it did not, Zoltar did not work in 20 minutes.
Even if it's not he went to bed, it was several hours later that it kicked in. Like this might have been an hour and a half trip.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they have this like shared smile, which is supposed to be really sweet, and it's just kind of like,
and it's
very
creepy.
Weird to me. He does like a little kid wave, but it's just like everyone involved with this is gonna need not just therapy, but a long-term team of therapists.
And probably medication.
Of course. His mother will never be the same. You want to talk about a rough childhood? Let's talk about Josh from ages 12 to 18 when he's not allowed to leave the house anymore.
It's sort of like a, if we want to see the other side of this, just watch the first season of Stranger Things, because Winona Ryder is the mom in this movie.
It's like he's never driving. There's 0% chance she lets him get his driver's license.
No,
it's like,
never.
oh, the kidnappers will come back. It's like, Mom, there weren't kidnappers. I turned into an adult. And she's like, yeah, okay, bud. That's her locking him into his bedroom, and then the metal shutter rolling down over the bedroom window outside.
I was gonna say the shutter's there.
So he's never gonna get to leave. The little sister, her life is also ruined because, oh, by the way, your brother got kidnapped when he was 12, so now I'm terrified of this happening ever again, and I'm gonna turn into a psycho. It's like no one ever gets over this in this whole family. The dad left.
No,
Dad
God, no.
left. He's not going anywhere.
Mom and dad divorced, clearly.
And never came back. It's crazy to me that they don't, like, none of this.
He's still sleeping in his office.
Course. Yeah, it's just bonkers. The way this movie is, the way they choose to end this movie is in the worst possible way for everyone involved. As opposed to, again, like, not to pat myself on the back too hard, I didn't think it was that revolutionary of an idea. It was just like, just reset it. Just reset it back to it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Reset the timeline.
Crazy. That said, I still recommend this movie. Like, even without the meta fridge horrorness of it, where it's like, oh, you realize later that movie's actually scary. It's a great performance from Tom Hanks. The performances are solid all around.
Probably should have gotten the Oscar.
Yeah, I agree.
For it.
I agree.
I don't know what else came out that year.
I find him incredibly charming. I find the movie incredibly charming as well. So I'm totally fine recommending this movie. I like, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry that we just spoiled the whole thing, because it's kind of a fun journey to go on yourself. But I think you could enjoy it both as, like, on its face, it's this like very charming, movie, Tom Hanks turns big, he learns some lessons, yada, yada, yada. I think that's like super fun. You can totally enjoy it on that level. And then you can also enjoy it as the idea of like, oh, this is truly insane. Like what is happening in this movie is unbelievably insane.
When you look 30 seconds more, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as soon as you think about this movie, you go, okay, hold on. There's some problems here. But again, like, nobody thought about it back then. He lost to Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, which, I was like, it's a decent performance. I certainly don't. Also nominated that year, Max von Sydow.
For what?
Kelly the Conqueror, which I've never heard of.
No, I have not
epic
either.
1987 film telling the story of two Swedish immigrants to Denmark who build a new life for themselves. It's probably very sad.
Yeah, God, the Oscars are sad.
Not a movie for this podcast, I wouldn't think.
Somebody throw a pie.
Somebody get big and have sex with a woman. Oh, wait, no, too much. That has been big. The 1988 Tom Hanks classic, kicking off our month of Tom Hanks movies. As we said at the top of the show, we continue next episode with 1990's Joe versus the Volcano, which is now in our bailiwick. Great movie. Your first time, right?
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
So excited to see your reaction to this movie because I deeply love it. I came to it just recently, a couple of years ago, and it's just like an instant love affair for me in this movie. Mega super weird. Highly recommend watching this one before the episode if you have the means to track it down. It's probably streaming somewhere, but it's worth it. It's a very fun, weird movie. If you like the kind of stuff we tend to like, you'll probably really enjoy this movie. It's a good oddball thing. Culturally insensitive, of course, because it's from 1990, but I find it incredibly enjoyable. Just rewatched it recently, and that's why I was like, oh man, we got to do this in the podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to the show, not just this episode, but any of the episodes over the years. We've been doing this for going on 8 years now, and it's pretty awesome. Didn't acknowledge starting season 8 back in August because we had this coming up, and I just wanted to take the time to do it then. But so many lovely memories, so many lovely, all the lovely words people have shared with us over the years, whether tweets or reviews or any of that stuff. It's just so appreciated, and we thank all of you for listening to the show. It's really special to have people listening to the show in other countries and other continents and all over the world. It's really kind of bonkers for us, and we really appreciate it. So thank you all very much for that.
Yes, thank you.
On that note, if you've not reviewed the show, what are you doing? Get out there and review the show. It takes 2 seconds. If you do it on iTunes, we read those on the air. If you do it elsewhere, you got to send us a screenshot. It's dissectingthe80s@gmail.com, and we'll read those on the air if you send them to us. I just don't get them emailed to me on other platforms, so we need them sent to us. So if you do it, take the time and send the screenshot. You can get in touch with us at Dissect the 80s on Twitter and on Dissecting the 80s on Facebook. Also, if you don't subscribe to the show, you should do that wherever you get it. That makes a big difference and is a big thing for getting the podcast out there. So if you just listen to us sometimes, but you like the show, you should hit that subscribe button. Apparently, you're supposed to tell people to do that. We just learned that 2 episodes ago, so we're very
8 years
very
in.
professional. So yes, we will be back in 2 weeks to talk about Joe versus the Volcano, which I cannot wait for. And until then, I have been Tripp Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until next time.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.